Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. It's your business to figure out what the heck's going out there in Syria and solve our problems, because the people in charge certainly seem to be clueless. Got a guest here today, Chuck Crismier. He's with a group called SaveUS.org, and he's got some opinions on this crisis in Syria. Tell us a little bit about your background and your organization, and welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you. I was a practicing attorney for 20 years in Southern California, ran a couple of times for the state legislature until 1992, when the Lord spoke to my mind, my heart, and said, "Son, you've been pleading the cause of men long enough. I want you to plead my cause in the land." And so we formed Save America Ministries as a voice to the church, declaring vision for the nation there in 1992. The last 18 years, I have done a daily 1-hour national radio program confronting the deepest issues of America's heart and home, written 7 books, the last of which is King of the Mountain, which is rolling off the presses as we speak.
Yeah, well, very good, very good. So what about the situation in Syria? It's kind of an interesting time, and it's really changing the whole landscape of geopolitics.
Well, indeed it is, and what people don't realize, I think, is that Syria is a pawn in a much bigger game, a much bigger scheme. And it's a geopolitical scheme, but it's also a spiritual scheme. And it's when you start connecting the dots that you realize how serious Syria really is. You see Russia involved, watching over Syria's shoulder, and you wonder, why is that? Then you have Iran watching over Syria's shoulder and trying to protect Syria for its purposes. Then you have Turkey that's seeking to take out Assad rather than keep him there, and you wonder, why is that? And why is it that Turkey and Iran are at fisticuffs with one another? And then you begin to see, this is the building battle for King of the Mountain, the rulership of our planet. And each one of these powers is struggling to position themselves, sometimes individually and sometimes through coalitions and collectives, to be in position to become King of the Mountain, to rule the world, in fact, from the Temple Mount. Mm-hmm. And that's what's taking place right before our eyes.
Well, it seems to me that the United States is deciding to sit this one out. You've already got England going, what? They have kind of dismissed themselves from that situation. You've got Barack Obama almost acting like an adult child, waiting for a grown-up to show up, who has in the form of Putin saying, we'll take over from here now. And you can almost see a sigh of relief on Obama's face last night as he did an interview about the situation. It really is quite sad.
Well, it is. Indeed it is. But then you've got to understand what Obama's motivation was in the first place. Obama's motivation in Syria has almost nothing whatsoever to do with the so-called red line, and that's why he's trying to avoid the red line. He drew that only because he was forced to do it. But the reality is Mr. Obama wants Assad out of Syria because Assad is the last bastion of protection in the Arab world against fundamentalist Islam. And Obama, through the so-called Arab Spring, facilitated the removal of Hosni Mubarak from Egypt. Yes, he was a nasty dictator, but he was keeping out something even worse, and that was Islamic fundamentalism. Then he took out Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, same situation. And the last one of the Arab dictators that's standing in the way of the spread of fundamentalist Islam in the Arab world is Mr. Assad.
Yeah.
That's the reason Obama wants him out.
Yeah. So you're saying that he's a Islamic sympathizer, Mr. Obama.
At the very least, an Islamic sympathizer. And if anyone heard his interview or witnessed his interview with George Stephanopoulos a few years ago, when he actually came out and talked about his Muslim faith.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and of course he's distanced himself from that comment ever since. But yeah, it's an interesting thought. I will say I'll give him this on this situation, and I've said all along. I said right from the very beginning that the Arab Spring was a nightmare for everybody. It would be even a nightmare for people who are members of minority groups that were not even Christian in those countries that had it. Even some Muslim-friendly type religions that or sects within Muslim religions would have problems if they weren't the right type of Muslim. And sure enough, it's all panned out to be reality. I'd much prefer the dictator that we can bribe and control than the dictator that who's going to do whatever the heck he wants to do.
Well,
and so the situation with Syria, I don't know what if I were Obama, I would do nothing, which is strange when you're talking about chemical weapons. But when you have 10% of the population there being Christian saying, "Don't do anything, we'll take Assad over, who will ever replace him," and you've got Israel saying, "Don't do anything, we'll take Assad over whoever's replacing him," I guess I would do nothing.
Yeah, but you've got to understand, again, his motivation. His motivation has to do with the demand of the Quran that Islam rule the world. Mm-hmm. And so the coalition of Islamic nations growing now, they believe that this is the propitious moment to fulfill the Quranic command to rule the world. And they have already declared that their intention is to make Jerusalem their capital. Well, isn't that interesting? Why is that? Because Jerusalem is the place where the God of the Bible, of creation, chose to put his name there, and the Temple Mount is the 37 acres that issues up above Jerusalem and is the place where all of human history, from Abraham forward, displays God's intention to rule and reign from that mount. Therefore, what we're seeing is the final culmination, the coalescing of 6,000 years of human history and biblical prophecy that are becoming congruent right before our eyes in massive fulfillment, and we have just begun to see the incredible conflagration that is going to be stirred as these powers, Islam and Russia as the third Rome, and the Vatican, first Rome, and the new global order, which is a secular power base coming out of Europe and America. All of these are coming together in this final battle for King of the Mountain.
We finally found your buttons. Chuck Crismier is our guest, has been our guest. He's with SaveUS.org. You want to see how this unfolds, you might want to check out SaveUS.org and Chuck's brand new book coming out. Thanks for being with us.
Well, it's been great. Thanks so much.
When we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here, it shows up over there at USDataReview.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter.